All right, family. Now it's time to go deeper. This is the moment where we peel back the layers, challenge old thinking, and get real about what's truly holding us back and what can finally push us forward. So grab your journals, lean in, and don't just listen, engage. And if something resonates with you tonight, do us a favor, subscribe, like, and share this message with someone who needs it, because the conversation we're having is bigger than us. This is the world premiere Word on the Streets.
The question you have to ask yourself is, am I willing to stay here if the pattern remains the same? Am I willing to be present if they say they want to change? Often we say, yes, but they're changing. Have they said they want to change? Have they showed you a plan? Have they committed to change? You may see small changes, but unless they've vocalized this, unless they've verbalized it, unless they've communicated it with you, you're still living in imagination. Now, I know you're thinking, Jay, what do I do when it's my family? What do I do when it's my partner? The first thing you have to look at is if it's abusive or toxic or highly emotionally manipulative. You've got to take a look at that very seriously. But if you're someone who is listening and saying, Jay, it's just, I'm not sure. I really wish they would do this. It would make a difference. You have to ask yourself how much you're willing to tolerate and be patient. Believe what they do, not what they say. If someone repeatedly disrespects your time, disappears during hard moments, or break boundaries, that's who they are. So if you're hoping for your partner to become more empathetic or less impulsive, the truth is they may say those things, but what are you seeing? What are they doing? What are they acting? Because we're so emotional and sentimental, when someone says the right thing, don't you just light up inside? And you almost think to yourself, I've just been waiting for you to say that. I've just been wishing for you to say that. I've been wanting for you to say that. But the reality is you're not waiting for them to say that. You're waiting for them to show that. That's what we have to focus on. So track patterns. Hope is not a strategy. Don't focus on promises, focus on patterns. If someone repeatedly disrespects you, that's who they are, at least for now. If someone disappears when things get hard, that's who they are. If someone breaks your boundaries and calls it love, that's who they are. If someone lies to protect themselves, not your trust, that's who they are. If someone makes you question your worth, that's who they are. If someone only shows up when they need something, that's who they are. If someone makes you feel crazy for having standards, that's who they are. If someone constantly apologizes but never changes, that's who they are. If someone expects grace but gives you none, that's who they are. They can change, but only if they want to. A big part of us justifies people's bad behavior.
All right, beautiful people, we're back, and the energy is still flowing strong. Tonight's deep dive into From Chaos to Clarity, breaking free from toxic relationships and reclaiming your peace, is striking chords. And we see you lighting up the comments with truth, vulnerability, and real questions. This isn't just a conversation, it's a collective awakening. So keep sharing, keep reflecting, and stay locked in. Because the next part, it's about healing, reclaiming your power, and rewriting the story. Let's get back into it.
Yeah, when it comes to toxic relationships, man, I've had my share. But I think what you said was key. Someone told me a while back, instead of like trying to change the other person, the person, once they see the change in you, and either they're going to get on with the program or either Like people do what you allow them to do. Right? It's that's in life, that's in work, that's in anything. I think when I stayed in my toxic relationships, it was because somebody was fine, right? It was for the wrong reason. I was young. I was looking at the body. I wasn't necessarily looking at the mind and the intellectual part of that. Uh, it's funny. I was talking to my wife a couple of years ago, and let's be real. Like when we're younger, we have a list of what we want in a female, right, or in a mate. Because I know that the ladies had that list too. Sometimes as we get older, those lists start to change. What you put at the top is now in the middle or at the bottom tier, right? And I like to look for equally yoked individuals. And back then, I really wasn't. The focus was on how bad was she? Is she fine? Is she good? Can she cook? Right? It was a lot of wrong reasons. But my wife also has a saying. I don't know if it's in the Mexican culture or you said it too, X. My wife says, "Show me who you are, and I'll treat you accordingly." Like once people keep showing you who they are, it's self-inflicted wounds that people tend to do. I stayed in a relationship far longer than I should have. I drug the kids in it. And I think one day I was coming out of church and some friends of mine said, "Are you happy?" And I'm like, they could tell. And they were like, "Why are you in it?" And they said, "Would you want your sons to marry a person like that?" And I was like, "Heck no." And they said, "Well, why are you with this person?" Right. So it just dawned on me when you hit with that reality of sometimes we're in a toxic thing. But let's be real too, a certain demographic, I don't want to say a certain demographic, a certain number of individuals likes that little troublesome aspect, right? Some girls want that bad boy, some guys want that. I'm not gonna call anybody out of their names, but some people want other types of high risk relationships, right? Best way I can kind of put it for right now. My mind's all over the place, but I've experienced my share, and I hate to say it was time wasted. I think the time that we spent, we can say that we were able to learn some lessons in the process. So that's it.
I was telling before you came, I was talking the difference between, like you said, you had a list. I really believe, like I was saying that earlier, when you have a list of transactions, everything, I think a lot of people go into relationships looking for certain things that we want. If we're not looking for a transformation, we're looking for transactions. In a relationship, what I'm going to get, what you're going to get, that's a transaction. You know what I'm saying? And when you go into the relationship looking like that, what can she do for me, or what can I want from her, what this, you know what I'm saying? So those are transactions, you know what I'm saying? And I think that's what a lot of us going in, like you said, not looking for a bad boy, it's looking for, as you, for example, I know like a female, I was talking to these two ladies. And I asked her one day, I said, you had, got in a bad place, you needed some money, you in a situation with your kids, what would you do? She said, well, shit, I'm gonna do what I gotta do. I said, well, what did that mean? He said, whatever I gotta do, go talk to this, I'm gonna talk to this dude, I'm gonna get this, I need to get my car, I asked another female, I said, what would you do if you got in that situation? Mm-hmm. She said, well, I got my family, I got this, I got, you know what I'm saying? I start seeing the difference between like somebody that's been used to dealing with family and people close to them, transformation, and people that deal with transactions. You see what I'm saying? Some people are like, I need a person to do this, do that, you know what I'm saying? And the other person going like, nah, I ain't willing to do that, so it's what you've been dealing with. So when we get to people, we start saying, well, they like a bad boy. No, sometimes your situation or your culture, how you was raised, put you in situations that another person wouldn't do. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, and I think that's where we go. And sometimes we look for somebody to fix us, somebody to save us, and we going out as a transaction. And you're gonna get, you know what I'm saying? You'll get all this toxicity when you really don't know. Like I was telling them when I got married, I didn't really know what I wanted. I was just trying to survive, I made my dated in high school, my first wife, and I wanted somebody to look good. They had to look good, had to be this, had to be that. You know what I'm saying? And I didn't go in there looking for my future. Like I want to have these things. We never sit down and really talked about what we're going to have, where you going, how we want our kids. You know what I'm saying? No direction. All
Mm-hmm.
just kind of survive and fill a void that we thought was important to us. And then when it all failed, we wonder why. That's why I feel. That's my opinion.
Yeah. See, that y'all absolutely right, man. I'm so sorry. We're gonna have to re-air this. I'm so sorry that we had technical difficulty because what we're saying and what we're talking about, it needs to be heard because we're both grown men, but we all three of us know that we wish we had known what we know now, that we could have told that younger Larry, that younger Vincent, that younger Keith. Am I right, brother?
Yeah, I think so. But I think also, I think to be real, like some of those lessons we needed to learn, right? Because without going through certain things, you don't really know what to look for, right? So that's why I said I don't always look at it as wasted time. Like, yeah, there was some I probably just shouldn't have been in, right? But at the same time, how much of the toxicity, like he said, like sometimes you get with an individual, and I was kind of guilty of it myself, thinking I could help. Like we had a fixed mentality. Like, man, I see like there's nothing wrong with saying I see the potential in that person, right? But, and again, I don't compare people. Hear me out when I say this, audience and team. I'll never want to compare a person to like a dog or a horse breed. But when you look at a dog and a horse breed, when you know the bloodline of an individual and you know the history of an individual, that helps prepare you to be able to handle certain aspects of that relationship or know what to expect.
Yeah.
Like it's I've been in some relationships and I knew early that, hey, there's some trauma there. But again, if the discussion isn't had between the two individuals, talking about the trauma and talking about the triggers, you got to be able to be a little bit kind of vulnerable, right? To help the toxicity. And again, we have that fixing mentality. The older we have gotten, there's less drama that we want to deal with. Yeah. When we're younger, we think we can handle it and this and that, but on the flip side, it kind of messes us up and it backfires, and we end up treating other women wrong because of how the other ones did us, right? So it's transferable, and it's like, okay, like there's a lot of legs to this as far as when you're getting with toxic people, right?
But I don't mean to interrupt it, but brother, here's the first leg that you mentioned early on that so many young people, this is why I say if we could talk to that younger self about what happened back in your day, back in my day, back in your day, Fletcher. We wanted her because she was fine. And the older people brothers didn't tell you all that it's more than just a body and a face. But now we know more now. And it's a whole lot more I say now to my son that I would have said to myself that they didn't say. In other words, you got a pat on the back for if you could pull the finest, the prettiest, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Let me use an example. My son Makai was dating this young girl, and the girl, when I met the girl, nothing against her, but I started asking questions about it. I said, well, where's her parents? Who she stay with? Well, she lived with her grandmother. Well, why do she live with her grandmother? You know what I'm saying? I don't, where's her mother? Well, her mother's here, but, her mother and her dad, they broke up. The mama did. She started telling. I said, wait a minute. Why do you know all that about the mama and the dad and all? Well, grandmother. I said, well, why would a grown woman tell a child all these things, you know what I'm saying? These things, and he started telling me, and I'm like, I said, man, she got too much going on, son. I said, nothing against her, but that girl got a lot of weight. She carrying a lot of weight, and you don't live like that. I'm not saying that you're better than her, but the things that she going through, you haven't been through those things. You know what I'm saying? She don't have a mom. She don't have a dad. Her mom and dad broke up in a toxic relationship. I say she living with her grandmother. Her grandmother let her, she basically do what she want. I said, that's not you. Y'all not on the same level. Y'all not on the same experience. And I said, what you gonna experience, and you gonna think that you can save her and you can't. I'm telling you, what she gonna do, she coming over here and she looking, she trying to escape. She trying to escape from her situation. And she thinks, you know what I'm saying, this is basically a transaction to her to say, I can get with him, he can do this, and at the time, you're like, nah, Dad, she a good girl. I say, I'm not saying she's not no bad girl. I say, look at her situation.
Right.
She can deal with those problems. Those are problems that she's gonna have to face.
Now, here's the thing, though, Fletcher. You was able to recognize that, and you communicated that. That's what I'm saying. Wouldn't you have loved that for yourself?
Exactly.
That's all I'm saying.
And then, it's like, let me say this to her now. Like when me and my first wife, my mom was saying all those things to me. But like I tell my son, I say, he said, well, Dad, when you didn't live, I say, it's different coming from a man, bro. It's a different way to say things to. I said, my mom would say the thing like insulting me. It wasn't no conversation. You know what I'm saying? Nothing against my mom, but it was a different conversation. And so when I told my son, I said, look, I'm gonna let you see. I'm telling you. I'm just saying, watch what I'm telling you with this young lady. Watch the things that she do, the things she say.
Yeah.
Watch it. One time he had a football game. And something simple as this. And we was at the football game. My wife said, hey, we got some people that we got to get a ride. I said, who we got to get a ride to? And the game was on a Thursday. The game ended like 11 o'clock. I said, who we get a ride? Well, kind of girlfriend need a ride. I said, wait a minute. Where's her parent? It's a Thursday. You got school tomorrow. Why she out to 11 o'clock? She don't have no ride. Then she had another friend with her, a young girl that was younger than her. So they come to the house. I say, hey, babe, wait a minute. Did y'all call y'all parents and say where y'all at? And the girl said, well, my grandmother, I told her I was going to get a ride with you, with Kai. I said, Kai's not responsible for you. And your grandmother should have known, you know what I'm saying? I said, wait a minute. Hey, it doesn't go like that here.
All these flashing signs.
All these signs, you see what I'm saying? But my son have no idea of flashing signs.
Yeah. And it's kind of one of those things, Keith, where I give you one more when it comes to the toxicity.
Yeah.
Like, it's things that we can share with our kids now. And, my sons have, dated women and young girls. And, unfortunately, some of them were having to stay with uncles or aunts and that. And first thing I ask is, how's the relationship with the dad?
That's what it is right there.
Like I say, how's the relationship with the dad? And then I'll be like, I said, all right, understand that there may be some trauma there because there's a disconnect between her and her dad.
Already.
And also, she's trying to fill a void that you're not going to be able to fill.
Perfect said right there, man. I'm sorry. That's perfect.
Well said.
That's what you said. Well said. Go ahead. Say that again, man.
Yeah.
Say that right there.
Yeah, she's having issues. She's having some issues with her dad, and as a result, she's going to have some issues as far as jealousy, and there's going to be some holes that need to be filled that you're not going to be able to fill that void because it's an emptiness in her heart that she's having, and her, not to take anything away from my son, I said, but the standard for her may not be as high because of what she's been through and going through. But as a result, there's going to be a level of toxicity, drama, jealousy, very neediness, clingy because of lack of what she doesn't have or didn't get.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's what I went through in my first marriage. My first wife, father wasn't there fully, and I was taken on as to be a replacement. And I couldn't fill those shoes, you know what I'm saying? I wasn't even trying to fill those shoes. I was just trying, but I didn't know, like what you just said. If I'd have known those things, what you just said, different in my life right there.
Right.
I didn't know.
And you keep giving and trying, and it just got a hole at the bottom of that cup.
You don't know. And then the great thing, like you said, you don't know what it is. You trying to do all this and you have no idea. What Ben just said, those things right there, you have no idea that that's what you're supposed to be feeling. And what you don't, You know what I'm saying? Which you can't. You know what I'm saying? But that's what they're looking for right there. They're looking for that void. They had a jealousy. They got that trauma that have to be filled, and they're looking for you to feel it. And you haven't even learned how to be a man yet. You know what I'm saying? You haven't learned how to be a father to your own and all these things. And they set these things up in their mind and think something's supposed to go that way. And you keep feeling. You keep feeling. You keep feeling it in their mind. And you don't even know
but you keep trying and trying and trying.
Yeah, you don't even know you failing. You don't know what you're doing wrong, but you keep trying to do something that you have no idea what you're trying to feel. You know,
and there's nothing that you can do right until she handles it and goes and deals with it.
Well, I wish a woman was on this show right now so they can actually hear what we're talking about. Thank all of y'all for tuning in. We are going to upload this segment, this part 2, Toxic Relationship on World Premiere Word on the Street. Thank y'all for tuning in, and make sure you tune back with us on next Thursday. Thank everybody for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Enjoy your dinner, sir.
Real, buddy.
And that wraps up another powerful episode of World Premiere Word on the Streets. We're live every Thursday evening at 7:30 Central Standard Time, and we'd love to have you join us again. So take a moment to subscribe, tap that like button, and become part of this growing community. Until next time, guard your thoughts, speak only what you truly want to experience, and stay laser focused on what matters. Your words shape your world, and your mindset fuels your mission. We'll see you again. Same time, same place. Right here on World Premiere Word on the Streets, where truth meets transformation. Stay strong, stay grounded, and as always, stay true.